The Invincible War showed us the diversity of all the possible versions of Invincible. Each of them is Mark Grayson, who unleashed his inner monster, leaving behind a long, bloody trail of ruined lives, pain, tears, and suffering, as well as burnt homes. All of them, without exception, are egotists who became key figures in executing Angstrom Levy's crazy plan to destroy the heroic image of the superhero. As a result, millions of victims and the survivors cursed the name of Invincible. Greetings. In this video, I will try to analyze each version from the original source, as well as touch on the small differences shown in the animated series. We will find out who the Invincibles fought, how exactly they died, who made it into the top 5 strongest. And we will also try to figure out which of the Invincibles earned the title of the real jerk among these thugs. A warning. This will be spoiler-heavy, but at the same time, interesting, so I wish you an enjoyable viewing experience. Some of the Invincibles shared one thing in common. From childhood, Omni-Man trained them to conquer Earth, taught them to be strong and ruthless, and taught them to listen to the blood of conquerors, to follow the plans of the great and powerful Viltrumite Empire. But for most of these marks, there was a moment that became a turning point. A moment when they realized how vast the gap was between them and ordinary people. The realization that they could use their powers for their own gain, to turn the world into whatever they wanted. This became the reason why all of them chose the language of violence in their interaction with the world around them, instead of the creative power of love. Eventually, Levy came to them, offering to help with their conquest goals. But in return, he demanded their strength and rage to destroy the original Invincible. Levy hated the original Mark Grayson so much, blaming him for what had happened to him, that he was willing to cooperate even with those Invincibles who, in alternate universes, were personally responsible for his tragedies. For the murder of his son, wife, or girlfriend, his colleagues, and even for the execution of Angstrom himself. So the Invincibles found themselves on the original Earth, destroying everything in their path. For 2 whole days, they terrorized the planet, while the superhero community did everything in its power to minimize the losses of the good guys. On the 3rd day, only 8 Invincibles were left alive. The scientist ordered the survivors to find and bring him Mark so he could mutilate him, but was refused. Then Angstrom banished the Invincibles to a wasteland dimension so they could calm down and reconsider his words. But it turned out that the appearance of the original Mark Grayson once again disrupted his plan. Levy was defeated, lost his arm, left the battlefield, and instead of getting the chance to recover with the help of the technicians, he was forced to work for them. By the way, I made a separate episode about the technicians. If you're interested, you can check it out via the pop-up tip or the pinned comment. Once under the technicians' control, Levy couldn't free the Invincibles from the wasteland dimension, and they were stuck there for several years. Eventually, the group started to experience hunger and turned to cannibalism. Now let's talk about each version of Invincible separately. You should understand that for most of them, we know nothing about their origin and history. I'll share with you only what we've managed to uncover both from the comic and the animated series. Based on these pages from the comic, I believe there were 16 evil versions of Mark Grayson, but it turns out there are a few more. The tech jacket superhero, wearing the armor of the Geldarians, which increased the wearer's strength by 100 times and had many powerful functions, was unable to withstand 2 conquerors at once. In desperation, he decided to channel all his energy into the battery, resulting in a destructive explosion that destroyed both Mark Graysons. After that, they were turned into Reanimen. However, the wearer of the armor managed to survive, though with serious injuries. In the animated series, the long-haired Mark, even though he fought other supers, still did not survive the Invincible War. In Episode 7, we saw how the mustached Mark, dressed in a general's uniform, battles the tech jacket and is killed by the hands of the hero. However, in the original source, the mustached Mark is killed by a woman named Ultra. After that, he was turned into a Reanimen. This Invincible killed Adam Eve in his universe. He liked what he did so much that when he found himself on the original Earth, the first thing he did was go look for Samantha. When they met, He told her that this time he would kill her slowly, so that he could fully enjoy the process. In the animated series, we were shown that he managed to emerge victorious from the battle with the big guy. In both the comics and the animated series, he was among the 8 who survived the Invincible War and were sent to the Wasteland Dimension, where he was later eaten. Invincible 5 is killed by the powerful darkness and turned into a reanimen. He was not present in the animated series. Invincible 6. He fought a hybrid of an alien and a human, known as Pit, created as the perfect machine for destruction. Invincible lifted Pit into the air and suffered a brutal defeat, after which he was turned into a reanimen. Although the hybrid managed to emerge victorious, he sustained serious injuries after falling from a great height. Personally, I didn't notice him in the animated series. Invincible 7. He wears a suit from the alien race Flaxans. It is possible that he is the emperor of the Flaxan Empire. He destroyed the Pentagon but was killed by Britt and Donald Ferguson, after which he became a reanimen. In the animated series, he was killed by the reanimen and later became one of them. Invincible 8, Bulletproof, infiltrated a secret base beneath the Pentagon but was destroyed by a crowd of reanimen and turned into one of them. He met the same fate in Episode 7. Invincible 9. Omni-Mark, whose attire resembles Nolan Grayson's suit, managed to defeat his father Omni-Man in his universe. However, how exactly he accomplished this remains a mystery. He fought Shadowhawk and Madman on Day 2 of the Invincible War. Mark died by getting his neck broken by Madman's yo-yo. Perhaps in his reality, Nolan actually gave in to his emotions and simply couldn't resist his son. After his death, like all the other fallen Invincibles, he joined the ranks of the Reanimen. Unlike his comic version, Omni-Mark from the animated series survived the Invincible War, which, as you understand, didn't happen in the comics. It is known that he harbors a deep hatred for Adam Eve, which he demonstrated not only in words, but also in actions. It is also known that in his universe, he killed his own mother. He survived the Invincible Massacre and, along with the rest of the 8, ended up in the Wasteland. However, how his future will unfold in the animated series remains to be seen. Invincible 10. The presumed leader of the Viltrumite Empire in his dimension. In both the comic and the animated series, he behaves the same way, making the remark that his opponent is too weak, even to be a slave in his empire. He is responsible for the destruction in London, survived the War of the Invincibles, and was eaten in the Wasteland dimension. Invincible 11. This version of Invincible easily dealt with the young heroes, seriously injuring Monster Girl, beating Bulletproof and Rexplode. Realizing the situation was becoming critical, Rexplode understood that unless they acted quickly, certain death awaited them all. He urged his comrades to urgently leave the battlefield. Invincible fully understood how Rexplode's powers worked and knew that his arsenal was depleted, and his actions had become too predictable. In desperation, Rexplode decided to take a drastic measure. He used all his power to charge his own skeleton and create such a powerful explosion that it would crush Invincible. In the animated series, the same thing happens, although in the original source, the tension and drama are much greater. Invincible 12. He also crushed Omni-Man. Despite the fact that in the battle with his father, Omni-Man leveled their home and everything around it to the ground, he still holds his memory in high regard. Omni-Man for him remained the embodiment of strength and destruction, so in the battle with Oliver, he states that the boy still has to earn the symbol on his chest. His words also reveal that not all evil versions of Invincible killed their own mother. In any case, this guy survived the Invincible War and ended up in the Wasteland dimension, where he was later eaten. In the animated series, it's all different. We don't see how he participates in the war, who he fights, or how aggressive he is. Maybe he's just a good guy who decided to sit it out, as he joined Levy only to find his mother and take her. However, considering that Angstrom was watching what was happening, and the Invincible is standing in the background of a destroyed bridge, this seems unlikely. Invincible 13. He bravely fought against the Liberty League, defeating Mighty Man and Super Patriot, but had serious problems with Kerr Dragon. In the end, Kerr kills him and collapses unconscious. The dead villain was turned into a reaniman. In the animated series, however, it is he who fights Oliver and dies at the hands of Powerplex. Invincible 14. Dressed in a prisoner's robe with burned skin. The comic hints that due to his father's actions, who is likely the Emperor, Mark spent an entire year in prison. Who knows what terrible tortures his body was subjected to? Upon arriving on the original planet, he went on a rampage in Moscow. He managed to survive the Invincible War and was sent to the wasteland. Most likely, according to the other Invincibles, he was considered the biggest jerk, the most annoying element of their supervillain team, who they decided to eat first. Why can this be assumed? Because his body underwent severe suffering. He spent an entire year in a cell, most likely in solitary confinement. That amount of time would be enough to drive anyone mad. He's kind of like a Deadpool version in the Invincible universe, with a disfigured body and a deteriorated mind. The Invincibles tore him apart in a fit of rage. His body fully decomposed, and nothing of his suit remained on his skeleton except for the glasses, unlike the others. Of course, we also consider the fact that the remains of the other three Invincibles are not shown, but purely theoretically, the tortured Viltrumite who went insane in prison most likely fits the description of the biggest jerk. But again, this is just a theory. In the animated series, we saw that he encountered Milos Stojakovic, a superhero known by the nickname Cast Iron. He survived the war and ended up in the wasteland. Interestingly, in the animated series, Levy has reached out for help from different versions of Invincible who were imprisoned. For example, at the end of episode 2 of season 2, we saw the only version of the villain that the government managed to capture. Like most of the evil Marks, he joined his father. The government lured Omni-Man into a trap using experimental quantum bombs. The destruction was catastrophic, and almost all of Europe was destroyed. As for Invincible, he was worn down and captured while he was asleep. For reasons unknown to me, Levy changed his mind about saving him and using him for his purposes. By the way, in this world, Cecil Stedman and Donald Ferguson are women. This Mark deserves mention because he too turned to the dark side. He is very similar to the original version, except that he decided to join his father and adopt the ideals of the Viltrumites. Although his heart hardened, and he began to deal ruthlessly with his opponents, he still couldn't bring himself to kill Adam Eve, who was leading the resistance at the time. This shows that despite everything, there is still a part of humanity left in him. If he did participate in the War of the Invincibles, his role remained off-screen. If not, perhaps Mark himself refused Levy's offer, proving that without extra help, he and his father could make the Empire as great as they desired. He is the one behind the murder of Levi's wife or girlfriend in his universe. During the Invincible War, we were not shown who he fought, but we did see him die, meaning he will be turned into a reaniman. And now we come to the top 5 strongest, according to the original source. He fought against the superhero team Cyberfoes. He knew exactly what each of them was capable of, as he was well acquainted with them in his universe before the team disbanded. He held his ground, fighting against 5 opponents at once. When Mark and Adam Eve arrived to help Cyberfoes, Invincible seriously wounded Samantha, for which he paid with his life and was turned into a reaniman. In the animated series, we see him fight against another superhero team, vastly overpowering them. When Mark and Samantha arrive on the battlefield, the villain and Omni-Mark face off against them. Thanks to Cecil and his reaniman, Mark manages to take Eve and get her to the hospital. The villain dies and will most likely be turned into one of the reanimen, single-handedly defeated Guardians of the Globe, decapitated the Immortal, crushed Duplicate and her clones, cut Shapesmith in half, and even wounded Black Samson. In open combat, he effortlessly dominated his opponents, feeling a deep sense of disappointment at how easily and quickly he was able to defeat them. However, the wounded Darkwing managed to transport both himself and Mark to the Shadowverse. In the animated series, the events unfold in the same way. Viltrumite Mark. He wears the uniform of the Empire's soldiers. He possesses truly destructive potential. As in his universe, he managed to defeat Spawn, although not at the peak of his powers. As you might understand, alternate universes have different characteristics for hero powers, including weaknesses. So, Spawn in this Mark's universe is much weaker than the original. In the animated series, this Mark fought against Wolfman, whom he killed in his own universe. Both managed to survive this battle. Mark became one of the 8 Invincibles who survived the massacre and was later sent to the Wasteland. There, he proved his strength again, ranking among the top 3 longest surviving Invincibles. However, he was eventually eaten by Sinister Mark. Mohawk rightfully takes second place. He rules his own dimension, with a magnificent headquarters located high above the Pentagon. His loyal soldiers fight against Thrag and his rebels, answering every challenge thrown at their emperor. Conquest carries out all assignments, and even in this alternate universe, he lost his right eye and arm, which he replaced with a prosthetic. It's curious why he looks the same in this reality, as in the original universe, where his injuries were caused by the Scourge virus. Perhaps it's a mistake by the artist or a deliberate move designed to fuel fan debates. Despite his power and might, Mohawk does not feel true satisfaction. He seeks to expand his empire, which is why he becomes involved in Levy's venture. He tries to fill the void left by the loss of Adam Eve, surrounding himself with women who resemble Samantha. Mohawk sits on a golden throne, smiling as he makes decisions that affect the fates of tens of millions of subjects. Upon arriving on the original Earth, he destroyed a prison and then confronted the original Invincible and was defeated. Not only did he survive the War of the Invincibles, but he also lasted the longest without being devoured in the Wasteland dimension. When he finally managed to return to his own universe with Levy's help, Mohawk took the scientist with him to seek revenge for the years spent in the Wasteland. Mohawk tortured Levy to make him fulfill his part of the deal, expanding his empire. During this time, his scientists were attempting to uncover the source of Angstrom's abilities. Ultimately, Robot killed Mohawk and Angstrom Levy in order to trap the original Invincible in an alternate universe. In the animated series, we saw the same events as in the comics, up until the point where he was trapped in the Wasteland. What happens next will be revealed in the upcoming seasons. This version of Mark is one of the most arrogant and sarcastic. He also infiltrated the original Invincible's home with the intention of killing his mother, but fortunately, Debbie wasn't there. Although in the comics, it was the guy who topped the list of the strongest who planned to do this. Meet Sinister Mark. He is considered the most dangerous, ruthless, and cunning version of Invincible found by Angstrom Levy in the entire multiverse. Pure evil incarnate. Killed his mother in his home universe. Upon arriving on Earth, he encountered Duncan Rosenblatt, who turned out to be a pathetic copy of the Monster Lord from his home dimension. He easily defeats the Dynamo 5 team. He then heads to his home to kill the mother of the original Invincible. But there, he encounters Oliver. Among the 8 surviving Marks, he displays leadership qualities. He openly defies and threatens Angstrom Levy, and then, upon arriving in the Wasteland dimension, pits the Invincibles against each other. During this battle, only the Sinister and Mohawk survived. Mohawk truly feared Sinister, as he had tried to kill him multiple times. Even the appearance of the original Invincible in the Wasteland, due to the actions of Levy, offered no guarantees of victory over Sinister. Mohawk thought that if they teamed up, they wouldn't let Sinister kill them both. Eventually, Sinister attacked them, focusing on the original, allowing Mohawk to dealt a devastating blow. By the way, in the animated series, we saw Sinister hunting down Angstrom Levy's version from his universe, and then killing his son in front of him. During the Invincible War, he fought the Chinese superhero Best Tiger, who boasts unrivaled shooting skills. He also encountered this guy, to whom he declared that he had murdered his own father, Invincible 23. During the war, he didn't show up at all, survived the combat, ended up in the wasteland where he was eaten. Found this version in the final stage of the video. As you can see, there are more than 16 versions of Invincible. Personally, this was a very intense episode for me. If I missed anything, feel free to mention it in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give today's episode a thumbs up if it caught your interest. See you soon.